Here we go. So first up, we have some news concerning what's going on in the Diddy trial. Brian Steele just asked for a mistrial. We're going to find out why here in a second. Of course, shout out to Megan Cuniff. She's the one who posted the transcripts over on X. So make sure y'all go follow her and show some support and love as well. Let's see what's going on, why Brian Steele asked for a mistrial. And then we're going to get back into what happened during Kid Cudi's testimony so we can maybe see for ourselves what was being said there. All right. So Megan says Sean Diddy Combs' lawyer, Brian Steele, asked for a mistrial today after prosecution asked Kid Cudi if he had safety concerns. Diddy's bond's already been denied, so I don't even know why they would ask that question. Steele told the judge at sidebar, the answer is about to be that Mr. Combs has had other people killed. Dang. This is an outrageous question. What does he say? Here's the transcript. They're at sidebar. Mr. Steele says, may I? The court says yes. Your Honor, I'm going to move for a motion for mistrial. The government knows that this answer is about to be that Mr. Combs has had other people killed, which has not been verified. This is an outrageous question. The court says he didn't say that, but he will say that, says Brian Steele. He hasn't said that, says the judge. Well, he's about to say it. I'm putting the court on notice. The judge says, no, you don't get to put me on notice. Oh, dang. There's no grounds for any kind of application along those lines because no question that you're talking about has been asked and the answer has not been given. This is a tough thing, y'all. You know, attorneys, and we've seen it, like to play this game to where they're asked a question they know is going to get sustained. And sometimes if it's their witness, the witness may answer quickly and the jury hears it, which is more important than an objection being sustained or overruled, right? So this is the game that's played. I don't think it's a gray area. I think it's just a part of the system and the way the legal system works. So Brian Steele's trying to get a preemptive strike and say, hey, I don't even want this question being asked because I don't want it in the jury's mind. And the judge is like, well, too bad. They haven't said it. And they're allowed to go down this line. So we'll see what happens moving forward. The judge was not feeling Brian Steele, obviously, as stated here. And then also, Brian Steele says, well, the judge asked, now, what is your objection to the question that was asked? Brian Steele said, why were you scared of Mr. Combs? And his answer is going to be because Mr. Combs is violent. He has had other people killed. Maybe a little bit of a reach there by Brian Steele. Y'all have to let me know what you think. The judge says his understanding of things that had happened and his understanding of that event is not about a 404A issue, which is what was raised, correct? Brian Steele says it's not going to be a 404 issue. It's not like that. Okay, we're going to the next page. The court says that was the objection that was raised. So what is the objection? Brian Steele says he called his friend. This is what is in the 3500. I know the court read it. He calls his friend who told him that Mr. Combs had had other people killed. Oh, so maybe Brian does have some grounds for this objection. I believe that he's going to answer why he was scared. I'm preempting it because I know the court. If he says it, it's going to be a problem, basically. All right. Well, shout out to Megan for that little insight. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to rewind a little bit and go back to what Kid Cudi actually said during his testimony. So again, big shout out to Inner City Press has been on top of this trial and live tweeting from the court proceedings every single day. Absolutely amazing work. So we read a little bit of this yesterday. We didn't get to finish the testimony. If y'all wanted to hear the initial testimony from Kid Cudi, make sure you go back and watch that video. I'll leave a link in the description. So we'll see what Kid Cudi, what else he had to say on the stand. All right. So before the jurors were back, there was a little conversation. The judge asked the state, will you finish with this witness today? The state says yes, though the cross of Mr. Kaplan was 3 times as long as we thought. And then the jury entered the room. The state says, was the damage on your car before the call from the dog sitter? Kid Cudi says no. Did you think it was an accident or intentional? Kid Cudi says it was definitely intentional. Where did you see ClassE? He said he saw her at the Soho house. I'd reached out to Diddy and said, let's talk. This is getting out of hand. Kid Cudi was tired of the back and forth. He didn't want any beef with Diddy. Don't blame him. And so this is where we are now. All right. So then Brian Steele's like, hey, can I have a sidebar? The judge says, do you have an objection? Yes. All right. The judge says it's sustained. Disregard and move on. Jury, don't worry about that question. We're going to keep it moving. The state says, who set up the meeting at the Soho House? D-Rock and my manager. The state also says, what was Mr. Combs doing? What was Diddy doing? He was standing there like a Marvel supervillain, and then Kid Cudi laughs. He said, we were homies. You know that's my girl. Basically, stay away from Cassie. Come on, man. And what did you say? Kid Cudi says, I thought you had broken up. Then Diddy offered me some water twice. Interesting. Would you take water from somebody whose girl you took? I mean, like, nah, man, I'm good. Kid Cudi says, it was weird. Diddy was so calm. What did Cassie say? That we had fallen in love. Things happen. Oh. And then what did you say to Diddy? Kid Cudi says, what about my car? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. And Kid Cudi walked away. Did you see Diddy later? Kid Cudi says a few years later at the Soho House, he said, hey man, I'm sorry for all that BS. I was surprised, Kid Cudi says, so I found peace with it. No further questions at this time, says the state. The judge says, Brian Steele, you're up. Brian Steele says, I want to ask you some questions about your Porsche in 2022. 2012, says Kid Cudi. Brian Steele, I apologize. So you get a call about the damage to your vehicle. Any surveillance photos? No, says Kid Cudi. My dog's babysitter. All right. My dog's babysitter did send me pictures of the damage. Brian Steele says, the DNA taken. Are you aware it came back being female? Objection. No foundation, says the state. Sustained, says the judge. Do you know there were DNA results? The judge says, I'll allow that. Kid Cudi says, no, I didn't know that. Brian Steele says, Cassie told you that your relationship was over? Kid Cudi said, we just stopped talking. So you told this honorable court and this jury that she played you? Yes, says Kid Cudi. How did she played you and you had no clue? I had no clue, said Kid Cudi. I wonder what he means by that. So was Cassie using Kid Cudi to get back at Diddy? What does that mean? He played him. I have no idea. Anyway, Brian Steele says in 2011, you went on tour. Yes, says Kid Cudi. 65 locations. Yep. At the time, Diddy was an icon. Fair to say? Yes. You and Cassie had a sexual relationship. Objection. And then there's a sidebar. After the sidebar, Kid Cudi says, Mr. Steele, can I? The judge says, no. You can do that on redirect. If you want to clarify, you're a witness for the state. Talk to them. Brian Steele says, do you want to tell me something? Kid Cudi says, Diddy asked about me doing a song with Cassie in 2010. Brian Steele said, thank you for that. So you mean he was helping Cassie's career? I appreciate that, Kid Cudi. Brian Steele says, you believe they left your front door. You believe that you left your front door unlocked? Kid Cudi says, yes. There was no forced entry, said Brian Steele. Nope. Just presents open, door in the bathroom. I'm not belittling, just asking you. You called Diddy? Yeah. He was calm? He sure was. You went to see him. You didn't think he had a gun? I couldn't call it, says Kid Cudi. You're a strong person. That's how you categorize yourself, right? Kid Cudi says, yeah, this crossed the line. Cassie told you that she was abused, right, Kid Cudi? Yes. Brian Steele says, but she never said she was sexually abused. Is that true? Kid Cudi said she did not. Brian Steele says, you loved her. Tell me if I'm wrong. Kid Cudi says, I did. Oh, boy. Brian Steele says, you got played by the same person who played Mr. Combs, Cassie Ventura. Oh, dang. Jeez. I'm surprised there wasn't an objection there. Maybe there was and we won't know. This is crazy. Brian Steele says, in the 13 years since, have you ever been notified in California that there has been any more action on this car fire? No, says Kid Cudi. Did Cassie have multiple phones? I don't remember. Brian Steele says 3512. If I said it, I said it. Brian Steele also says, do you know what a burner phone is? Kid Cudi says it's something that's untraceable. Brian Steele says the trespass. You call it a break-in. Cassie told you she'd given your home address to Diddy. Kid Cudi says yes, that morning. Brian Steele says no more question, Your Honor. Thank you. No problem, says Kid Cudi. Is there a redirect? And then obviously the state does want to redirect. And they say, what did Cassie confide in you about the abuse? Kid Cudi says that he would hit her, sometimes kick her. The day of the break-in. Was she carefree? No, said Kid Cudi. What did Capricorn Clark tell you? Kid Cudi says Sean Combs and an affiliate forced her into a car to come to my house. I called the police. How would you describe Cassie that day? Kid Cudi said, just really shook. Him finding out about us makes sense. Why did your relationship with Cassie end? Kid Cudi said, the drama. It was getting out of hand. I wanted to give space. What drama? The break-in. For my safety. Her safety. Objection. What grounds? Says the judge. Speculation, says Brian Steele. Overruled. Why did you have safety concerns? Because I knew Sean Combs was violent. Your Honor, may we approach? And this is where the sidebar happens, where Brian Steele says, I know what's about to happen. Please don't allow this question in. Then we have that sidebar. Here's what happens next. The state says the meeting at the Soho House. Diddy said, I don't know what you're talking about with your car. Do you believe him? Objection, says Brian Steele. The judge says rephrase. What was your understanding about that? Kid Cudi says that he was lying. No further questions. The judge asks Brian Steele, any recross? Brian Steele says, no, Your Honor. The judge says, Mr. Muscuddy, Kid Cudi, you're done. All right, there it is. So let me know what y'all think about that initial testimony from Kid Cudi. Help the defense, hurt the defense, help the state, hurt the state, or was it really unnecessary? Obviously, with this being a RICO, all these little things, all these little stories, all this little testimony is going to go into the furtherance of the conspiracy. And specifically with this instance, we have a lot of insinuation pointing to the trafficking of Cassie. I don't know if y'all are seeing it or not. Let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat.